This week's episode is brought to you by the letters A, C, J, and S, as we welcome AJ Truman to talk about his Browerton University series, and CS Poe joins us as part of the 2016 GRL Blog Tour.
Welcome to the Big Gay Fiction Podcast, the show for readers and writers of gay romance fiction. If you can read it, write it, watch it, or listen to it, these two guys are going to talk about it. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Adams and Will Knaus.
Welcome to episode 46 of Jeff and Will's Big Gay Fiction Podcast.
I'm Jeff from JeffAdamsWrites.com.
And I'm Will from WillKnaus.com.
How goes it this week?
It goes it fine.
It goes it fine. Excellent.
Yeah, no complaints, nothing out of the ordinary or weird. How about you, sir?
It's been a good week. Also, nothing out of the ordinary or weird, so yay.
Yay for us! Yay, we're so boring that we don't have anything to report on our own podcast.
Well, we got plenty of stuff to talk about.
Okay, well...
So here we go.
Okay, hit it!
Hit it! So, just a couple bits of writing news this week. Got the blurb approved for Love's opening night. So that story's moving along nicely.
Yep.
And also finished off the first chapter for the Hat Trick 3 Rainbow High spinoff. Ooh. So, kind of happy about that. Yeah. Now, I just have maybe 26 more to go.
A bazillion more words.
That'll be a complete book. Yeah. So, last weekend we met a cool guy.
A cool guy?
A cool guy.
We actually did,
We
yes.
did. While we were brunching with our announcer, Clint Revick, who we never get to mention on the show.
Wait, while we were brunching.
I'm
sorry.
Because we were.
Okay, yes, we were brunching, technically.
We met Matthew O'Brien, who ended up sitting in the booth across from us. We were chatting with him because he had a Boba Fett shirt on, and Will had a Star Wars shirt on, and he heard us talking about the podcast, so we found out about his art project, which is called the SkullFace Project. And this combines his love of art, music history, celebrity, and current events into this piece of work that he posts every day on his Instagram account and cross-posts on Facebook. And essentially it takes a skull face, but overlays pop culture or news. We've seen him, he's turned the Enterprise into a skull face for Gene Roddenberry's birthday. He used the Brazilian flag to honor the Brazilian men's soccer team winning their gold medal at the Olympics. He celebrated Elvis's birthday. He celebrated the Wizard of Oz premiere date with the Tin Man. It's really cool stuff, so you should really check this guy out. Facebook.com/SkullFace Project, all one word. Or on Instagram, you can find him at SkullFace_project. And we'll link to that in the show notes so you can check out his work.
Yeah, I've been following him on Facebook, and he posts every day, and it's lots of fun.
Yeah, and sometimes multiple times a day.
Yeah.
He's turning out a lot of cool work.
It's cool, it's funky, it's different. Yeah, definitely check him out.
Yeah, check him out. And in terms of friends to check out, our friends at Truth/Fiction had a really good week. You want to tell the folks about this? I'll make you read something now.
Well, okay, I'll read this little blurb that you wrote. I don't actually... Okay. Congrats on being the official selection at both the ITVFest-Independent Television Festival, which is going to be October 5th through the 9th in Dover, Vermont, and the New York Television Festival, October 24th through the 29th in NYC.
Yeah, that's very cool for them. Getting picked up in a couple of festivals.
So they've got 2 of those lined up. Awesome.
Yeah, so you guys should follow the Truth/Fiction guys at Facebook.com/Truth/Fiction or on Twitter at Truth/Fic as they get details on when their screenings are going to be, because this will be a chance for you guys, if you're in the Northeast, to see the pilot on the big screen. And you don't want to miss it because you already know we think it's hysterical. So we'll give you some links to those in the show notes as well.
Yes, congrats to those guys, and check them out online and see what they're up to.
Yeah, best of luck to them.
It's good stuff.
So I read a comic book this week.
You read a comic book?
I read a comic book.
Do tell.
Because I've been beta reading for some people, so I haven't got anything on the novel front to read.
Okay.
But I saw this week. It's called The Backstagers, and it's from Boom Studios. It's a book from a bi-writer by the name of James Tynion IV, and I'm going to butcher this next name, and I apologize, and trans artist Ryan Sig, maybe? I apologize for that. This is an all-ages story about the behind-the-scenes adventures of a high school stage crew. And the writers and the artists came together for an article on The Advocate, and they're really pushing this to help young people find themselves in the pages of a comic. So there's going to be a lot of LGBT characters in this lineup. In fact, they were talking to The Advocate, and they're like, we have a straight character in here, do we really? And they think they do. This first installment, which came out this past week, is really sweet as you get to meet all the characters. They have this little adventure in their backstage area, because their backstage apparently is... It reminded me of a little bit of Narnia, where there's like these doors that they can just kind of go other weird places. So it's really a delight. We'll have some links in the show notes to Boom Studios with all the details on how to get it. You can get your digital version at Comixology, which is a Amazon company. So it's really easy to just read it on your tablet. And it's also out in comic book stores.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where else can they check that out?
Boomstudios.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we'll have it in the show notes, all the good places. Plus, we'll link up to the Advocate article, too, which is really good.
Okay. Awesome. I haven't read that yet, but hands up to everyone who was backstage on a high school musical show.
Or on stage, for you.
Yeah, I've done both. I was a terrible high school actor, and I wasn't very good backstage either, but yes.
Yeah, I did my turn at backstage later in life, but I've done that myself, so I could kind of relate to some of the things they were going through. Although there was no backstage going to Narnia at Ferndale Rep.
No, I was a 4-year high school drama nerd.
Now you read this week too.
But that's in the past. Let's talk about the future or the present. Actually,
the present.
Let's talk about the present and the books that I have been reading.
Yes.
Recently, I finished one of the most recent Dreamspun Desire books, book number 16. It's called Marriage of Inconvenience by MJ O'Shea. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because we've been plugging her a whole lot this year. This is the third Dreamspun Desire she has released in 2016. And I have loved every single one of them. This specific book takes a look at, of course, the classic trope, Marriage of Convenience. It is about a Hollywood actor who is caught in a compromising position.
Uh-oh.
Just as his career is about to be launched, because he got a part on this really successful cop show. So he turns to a PR company to clean up matters before he starts shooting the new season of this show. And it just so happens that one of the young gentlemen on the PR team happens to look exactly like the stranger Jericho Knox encountered in this incriminating photograph.
Oh, that's a great name.
So Jericho has to pretend to have a relationship with this young guy, and they hate each other at first. But as they, go out on fake dates and do the Hollywood thing, they begin to realize, there's another side to their story, and of course they fall in love. I really, really enjoyed this book. I've enjoyed all of MJ's books. And I think where she really excels is she takes these pretty, standard tropes, which is the whole idea behind Dreamspun Desires, and she really humanizes the characters. We understand what they're thinking and feeling in these specific situations, and the characters are... she really brings them to life. They're very real and very relatable, and I particularly loved the two leads in Marriage of Inconvenience, so I highly recommend it.
I can't wait to read that one. I read her other two Dreamspuns and absolutely loved them.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as I get on to my beta reading stuff, I'm headed to that book.
Yeah, and now that I'm actually finished with this book, I'm actually moving on to MJ's next book. It is
Open Road.
Called Open Road, and it tackles the sort of road movie trope.
That's got to be fun.
Two friends on a road trip finding love together. The reason that I'm doing two of MJ's book in a row is because we are, of course, big fans of her, And we've also booked an interview with her in the coming weeks.
Yeah, she'll be on the podcast in middle September.
So, yeah, we get to fanboy over MJ.
Absolutely.
If there are authors that you know and love, then go ahead and start a podcast. That way you can talk to them whenever you want.
That's right.
So, yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to that interview. We can talk about how prolific she's been in 2016. It's like, what was that girl doing in last year?
Yeah, late last year, she must have been just on the buzz of writing.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
No kidding. Anyway, so we're looking forward to that.
So we're starting kind of a 60-day challenge of our own.
Mm-hmm.
So as of yesterday, Saturday, August 20th, there are 60 days to GRL.
Exactly 60 days.
Yeah. And so we've started a 60-day fitness goal because we're both fat. Let's just call it what it is. We're both fat. For me, it's a problem. It's messing up my asthma to be as heavy as I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's messing up my sleep, making me snore more than I do anyway. And so it's time to take control of that a little bit in the next 60 days and really focus on eating better, which I think is where we both really mess up the most, although we could both certainly work out more, but the food is a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really looking to take control of it over the next 60 days. And so we mentioned it here on the podcast for a little accountability.
Yeah. I proposed this idea to Jeff on Friday. And it's like, hey, you know what? It's exactly 60 days until GRL. Do you want to do this thing with me? So we don't have a specific outcome in mind. What we're looking to achieve is what are the results going to be if we eat correctly for exactly 60 days. We're going to see how far we can get. First of all, how many days in a row can we eat correctly, which has been a challenge for us in the past.
Yeah.
And what are the results going to be if we do that for exactly 60 days? How much weight are we going to lose? How are we going to feel after that? Mm-hmm. So it's not about a specific number of pounds lost or, a certain number of workouts achieved, during the week or anything like that. It's really kind of exploratory because both of us have really essentially fallen off the diet and fitness wagon in a major way.
Yeah, that is very true.
In 2016. So this is a little bit of an experiment to find out what our new baseline is going to be.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
It's not like I've got to lose 20 pounds by GRL. I'm not going to be like hardcore about that. It's just that we're doing this one challenge, and specifically for us, it's going to be eating correctly for exactly 60 days.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which means we're going to pig out at GRL and pull out barbecue.
Probably. Yes. I'm not going to deny that. Probably.
Time now for the GRL Guest Author Spotlight.
We're happy to welcome CS Poe to the podcast as part of the official 2016 GRL Blog Tour. CS is an author of gay mystery, romance, and paranormal books. She's a reluctant mover and has called many places home in her lifetime. She's lived in New York City, Key West, and Ibaraki, Japan, to name a few. She misses the cleanliness, convenience, and limited edition gachapon of Japan, but was never very good at riding bikes to get around. She has an affinity for all things cute and colorful, and a major weakness for toys. CS is an avid fan of coffee, reading, and cats. She's rescued 3 cats, including one found in a drain pipe in Japan, who flew back to the States with her. Zach, Milo, and Casper do their best on a daily basis to sidetrack her from her work. CS, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Are the cats going to make an appearance on the interview?
I hope not, because they'll be all up in here.
That would be okay. So tell us about your new book that's coming out, The Mystery of Nevermore. It's out August 31st.
August 30th.
30th, okay.
Yep. It's the first in a series. It's the Snow and Winter series. And the whole series follows the sort of misadventures of Sebastian Snow, an antique dealer and amateur sleuth, and his NYPD homicide detective boyfriend. And the first book is how they meet, which is being brought together by murder mysteries surrounding the writing of Edgar Allan Poe.
So using a little bit of your namesake there, too, with Poe.
I was definitely inspired by Edgar Allan Poe. I even have a Edgar Allan Poe tattoo.
Nice. Any other particular inspirations for that book that the readers would be interested in?
The to Josh Lanyon, who is one of my absolute favorite writers, and there is a very tiny Easter egg in there that, if anyone notices, is a little shout out to Josh.
Nice.
So, look hard for it, it's there.
Okay. Now, you've moved everywhere.
Yep.
But you're very into Japan. So what was one of your favorite things about living there?
So besides the language, the culture, the people, my favorite thing were the gachapon.
Okay, now what particularly drew you to those?
So gachapon are the little toy vending machines, and I'm sure like everyone probably knows what they are. You kind of see them in America, but they usually have like stale candy and bouncy balls in them. Mm-hmm. But in Japan, they're very popular, and they're always full of like the most popular animes or thing of the week, and it's always full of limited edition toys. And first off, I'm like, well, toys is my thing, and they're tiny, so I can put them on shelves. I got this whole thing back there full of toys, and they're only about 200 yen, which is like $2. And so you just pull some coins out, drop them in a machine. And gachapon is actually just a sound in Japanese. It's not even a word. Gacha is the sound, and pon is the Japanese sound for plop. So it's like gacha, pon, and it falls out. And so they always have cats, because cats are a big thing in Japan. So at the time that I saw a machine, I would stop to see if they had any cat toys. And it was, the machine outside my junior high school I taught at, the one outside the drugstore, the grocery store, the furniture store. There's whole alleyways in Tokyo just full of the machines because it's empty real estate. There's a street in Ueno, which is a part of Tokyo, the whole lined with machines. It was the best 10 minutes of my life. I spent like $20 on toys.
Now, do you get to pick the toy you're getting out of the machine, or is it random?
So if you want one, there's usually like 5 or 6, and you want one particular, you just have to keep cranking, hoping that you're going to get it. And that's how they make so much money off of you. My friend visited me at the time when we found the street in Ueno. It's like 100 machines there. She easily spent $20 on one machine trying to get one particular toy.
Wow. So do you end up and get to like trade and collect with your friends who might have ones you want?
Oh my God, yeah. I'd keep going to the same cat machine to try and get more, and I would just get duplicates. I'm like, what am I going to do with 4 white cats? I want the calico. So I would mail my sister all the duplicate toys I got.
That's awesome.
That was me. I was an English teacher who just spent all of her money on toys.
I knew exactly what to put in front of you with these machines.
It was so easy. It was so easy. And it's silly stuff like cats made to look like little ice cream desserts, or little dogs made to look like sandwiches. It's like the most ridiculous and useless thing you can think of, and that was the toy. It was great.
So is there going to be a story set in Japan at some point, or have a collector of gachapon in a story somewhere?
I didn't think of that, but there should be some gachapon in a story. I do have an idea for a story that would at least have a few scenes in Japan, which I'm happy to do, but it's probably not going to be for a few years. But I do have a number of Japanese characters, and one of them I'm writing now, so I'm hoping that maybe a sequel or would be where he's back in Japan.
That's cool. So you came back from Japan with all these toys and a cat.
I did. And that was not planned. At my junior high school, the thing that is very different in Japan is that every single day in the afternoon before swim, the students have to clean the school. There is no janitorial staff for public schools. So every teachers kind of oversee like 8 or 9 kids, and they all have to clean for part of the school. And I oversaw the first-year students who were the equivalent of 7th graders. And they clean the front of the school, like where all the little lockers are for the shoes, and the front, sidewalk and everything, make it look nice. And I was waiting for them to put away all the mops outside, and they come running back inside, Sensei, and they told me, we found a cat. And there are a lot of stray cats in Japan, and I know one in particular that lived in the area. I was like, oh, guys, it's just a cat. That's okay. They didn't say kitten. They had said cat. And they wanted to show us. So me and the other English teacher went outside, and they're pointing to this corner behind a drain pipe, like, there's a kid there. And I'm like, I don't see anything. And I reach in, and they pull out a tiny little cat. It's big. And I was like, okay, guys, that's a kitten, not a cat. And it's like 4 weeks old. It can't walk. It, falls over.
Aww.
They go back inside, and I look at the other teacher, and he's like, you should keep it. He's a Japanese guy, and, I'm a foreigner living in an apartment building that does not allow pets. And I was like, oh, I can't. My building won't allow it. And he's like, I think it'll be okay if you don't tell anyone. I'm like, well, the Japanese break the rules. I guess I will, because I'm not going to leave it. It was, I think beginning of September, so it was starting to get kind of cool, and the cat was clearly abandoned by its mom. It was all alone hiding. So I took it home, but that day I happened to have my monthly meeting with the other foreign teachers where we get together and just talk about, how our classes were going and share ideas for, future projects. And I was like, I have to go to the town hall to meet with a whole bunch of other teachers with this cat who won't stop crying unless I hold it in my hand. So I went to the town hall with a little box, and the box is crying the whole way to the meeting room. And then I sat for an hour and a half with this little orange cat in my hand, and he became Milo. And all the Americans got it, Milo and Otis, little orange cat. They all thought it was great. All the Japanese citizens thought Milo, apparently it's a girl's name in Japan. My Japanese vet wanted to fix her, and I was like, no, we have to do something different. He is not a she. So that was interesting. But I came back with Milo and had to go through more paperwork than you can ever imagine for exporting an animal out of Japan. Would never wish that upon my enemy.
Wow. I was going to ask about if there was if you could just bring it home or.
Oh, America didn't care. I walked right in. They didn't give a crap. Japan, I had to see 2 vets. I had to get national paperwork notarized and stamped, signed the day I was leaving at the airport.
Wow.
It took 2 weeks to organize.
I'm glad you researched it earlier. You might have been in Japan longer than you expected to be.
Yeah.
To swing back to your new series a little bit, how many books do you have planned overall for that, or is it kind of an open-ended?
There are 4 books planned. I'm leaving it at that. There might be a 5th book, but it kind of has to, if it all falls into place, right? So right now there are 4.
Okay. And after this one comes out, what's coming next for you?
Next, after this, is a historical steampunk short story that comes out around the end of the year. It's going to be in an anthology that Kim Fielding was putting together with me and 12 authors. It's called Once Upon a Time in the Weird West. So they're all, kind of like alternate history, Western kind of stories. And mine is called Gunner the Deadly. And it was a lot of fun to write because I love doing steampunk. That's where I started before Mysteries. So it was really cool to go back to that. And then after that is actually the second Snow and Winter book, The Mystery of the Curiosities, which will be out in February.
Cool. What are you looking forward to in Kansas City this year?
Well, I've never been to Kansas City, so it sounds like fun. And I went to GRL last year, but I went as just a reader. So it was really cool to actually meet authors for the first time and, do your little, oh my God, fangirl moments. So, I'll get to fangirl again, which is always great. But this time I get to meet readers as an author, which is super exciting to do. And also, I love to socially drink. So let's get some whiskey and gin or some margaritas. Let's do this. I'm ready.
Awesome. So what's the best way for people to keep up with you online?
I'm on Facebook probably the most. My Facebook is CS1 because some jerk took CS Poe already.
Oh.
Also on Twitter, which is CS_Poe because someone took it already. But, Goodreads too. I have a website, cspoe.com. I'm always around those places, not doing work, getting sidetracked by the internet.
Oh, yeah. I know how that works. All right, CS. Well, thank you so much for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you in Kansas City.
Thank you so much.
You can follow the GRL Blog Tour by going to gayromlit.com/2016 blog tour.
So the Big Gay Fiction Podcast has teamed up with the authors we're hosting for the GRL Blog Tour to give away a 7-inch Fire tablet loaded with the books from our guests. And in addition, I'm giving books from my catalog, and Wild City Press is also offering up a bunch of books from their authors who are attending GRL. You can see the raffle copter on episode 46 show notes to enter. The Big GRL Blog Tour giveaway runs through Sunday, October 23rd, and on that page you'll also find a link to the participating authors who are giving books. And you did the word for this week, and in honor of the new comic book, that'll be Backstagers.
Backstagers.
So, I got to talk to AJ Truman a couple weeks ago. AJ is the author of the Browerton University series of new adult books. I read a few weeks ago, I believe it was called Out on a Limb. I didn't put that in the notes, of course, because that'd be too easy. It's the second book in the series that I read, and I found it to be a total delight. And AJ actually also kind of stalked us a little bit to get on the show, which was entirely cute, and we talk about that in the interview a little bit too. So let's talk to AJ. I'm excited to welcome AJ Truman to the podcast. AJ remembers his college days like it was yesterday, even though, as he says, it was definitely not yesterday. He writes books with Uber, Hart, and Hot Guys, and loves spending time with his pets, his partner, and writing on his sun porch. His latest book, Out on a Limb, was published earlier this year. AJ, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Oh, it's cool to have you here because you, and we'll talk about this a little more in depth later, but you actually campaigned to be on the show. I mean,
Yep. Had a whole campaign, hired Carl Rove, did the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, which was quite flattering to us because I mean usually authors say, "Hey, can I be on your show? Here's my book," but your campaign was awesome and really caught our attention.
Happy.
Tell us about your Browerton series and what its inspirations were.
So the Browerton series, it started about 10 years ago when I wrote my first book. It was a book about kids in college because back then I was a kid in college and it was angsty and full of drama. And then when I tried to show it around, most of the agents said, "Oh, we don't really publish books about kids in college. Either has to be young adult, so teenagers and below, or it has to be adult, or it has to be literary fiction like Curtis Sittenfeld did with Prep." And my book was definitely not literary fiction. I mean, I was inspired. I like to think of my books as those WB shows from the 90s, but in book form, and everyone's gay, like Felicity or Dawson's Creek. Like I used to watch those growing up. And this was 10 years ago, before new adult was ever a thing. And then flash forward a few years, and I still had the idea to do something like this. And I had written a book that was traditionally published. I was writing for young adult, but I wanted to write something a little bit more mature, and self-publishing had gotten big. And what really tipped me off is I went on a book tour for my young adult book. And at every stop, we did an event with other authors. And after these events, authors, we always go out for drinks and bitch about our publishers. It's like tradition. So it's the tradition and traditionally published. But anyway, so every time I went out after these authors, there was always at least one or two who said, "Oh yeah, I'm writing these books for my publisher, but I'm also self-publishing new adult and I'm making a killing, or I'm self-publishing romance or erotica." And just after hearing this, I said, I feel like now is the time. If you want to do something, just do it. And I had this idea, and I really wanted to write about gay kids in college because from my own experience, I didn't come out till I came to college. I came out like the first week I was in college. It was like pent up. But college is such an interesting time because it's the first time when you're on your own. There's no parents. You're really trying to figure out stuff on your own. Even just like before I went to college, I never cooked a meal in my life. Like my mom had always made all my meals. So now I'm in a dining hall and having to make those choices and just trying to, figure out how to be an adult and like find your own way in the world and figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life. And then add to that, a lot of kids come out in college, and I think for gay guys especially, there's this huge maturation curve because whereas heterosexual kids might experiment in high school, a lot of gay guys in the closet don't do that. So all of a sudden you go from like closet to like being around tons of gay guys and like really trying to figure out what you're just trying to figure everything out. And I was shocked that there weren't more books about gay characters in college. Or if there are, they're always like really sad, because like they have to like die or something. So I'm like, I want to write like a Dawson's Creek or Felicity about gay kids in college. And so I had this idea for Out in the Open, and I worked on it. I remember, I would work on it in between when I was working for stuff for my old publisher, and even when I was on my book tour, I'd wake up early and like do some editing of it. And I put it out there, and I said, we'll see what happens. And the response was overwhelming, like better than I ever imagined. I was just so happy that people found the book and people connected to it. And it really just inspired me to keep putting these books out. I think it's such a fertile ground.
Mm-hmm. You're very right about new adult, and even books about, college in general. You look at, like Serena Bowen created her whole Ivy Years series and has the straight characters and the gay characters, and they just all mesh up together through those books. So it's such a fertile kind of ground right now, for sure.
Yeah. There was like so much drama when I was in college, like the fun type and then like the not so fun type. It's just, it was just such an interesting experience for me. And I feel like, there has to be people around the world going through that same experience, to go from being, with like your parents. And also too, what I love about it is that college can be a fresh start for a lot of people. I went to college halfway across the country. It was a fresh start for me. I didn't know anyone there. So you can try to be whoever you want to be. And I think what I try to do with my books is it's about people who are trying to shed their old selves and thinking, oh, I'm in a new place. I can be whoever I want to be. But realizing that they have to reconcile who they were in the past in order to move forward.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Anything in these books particularly autobiographical, or a character who is more you than the others?
Yes. So for Out in the Open, I guess I am more like Ethan. I was like the kind of shy and a little more reserved character. I never had sex in a library or a movie. No, I never had sex in a movie theater. But I was definitely that kind of shy person. And with Ethan from Out in the Open, his big thing is that he has this group of friends who he's finally in a group of friends, but it's just like they're not his people. But he's trying to make himself into that person. And that's how I was. When I was in college, there were these group of kids I kept trying to be friends with. I kept trying to like make myself to be like them because I wanted to be in a group and have a group of friends. But it was not me. And actually, the Lorna character in Out in the Open, who's like the girl who becomes this like sassy best friend, she's based on my best friend. And she was actually roommates with one of these kids in this group I was trying to be with. And we just totally connected and hit it off. So I definitely understand what Ethan's going through, where you're trying to be someone else. You're trying to like fit in with this group of kids who you think are cool, and it's like your body's fighting it. It's like, this is not me, but like I want it to be me. And then with the second book, Out on a Limb, that's pretty autobiographical, not entirely. So I like to think that Cameron and Walker are me at different points in my life. So Cameron was me in college. I was a film major. All I wanted to do was move out to California and be a screenwriter. That I had my sights set on that. I was hell-bent on it. I just saw the future. And that's how Cameron is. Like, nothing's going to get in his way. And then in the book, he meets Walker, who's this 36-year-old guy with a kid, and he's divorced. And Walker's in a dead-end job that he hates and keeps wondering, how did I wind up in this life? You know, he's kind of like Kevin Spacey in American Beauty, except minus all the rose petals. And that was me. Like at that time, when I was writing this book, I was in a job that I didn't hate, but I didn't love. And I think a lot of people are in that situation. It's very rare that someone's in a job that they just hate and they're miserable going to work. For most of us, we're at a job that, it's fine, but it's not what we love. And do we really want to be spending a third of our life doing this? And that's how I was. I was working in advertising and I was not loving it. And I just kept thinking, you know, how did I get here? How did I go from wanting to be the screenwriter and having all these ambitions to being in this safe, stable job? Mm-hmm. And so I took those two sides myself and I created Cameron and Walker. And it was really tough when I was writing that book because what happens now on the limb, your 22-year-old graduating senior meets your 36-year-old with the kid and they fall in love and they try to figure out, you know, how can we make this work? You know, I'm moving across the country and graduating. You have a kid. There's no way this can work. And I did a lot of thinking about how I wanted the book to go, how I wanted it to end, because I wanted them to have their happy endings without sacrificing too much. But yeah, I mean, that's really like the autobiographical aspect. And like Browerton is based where I went to college in the Midwest.
With Out on a Limb, I mean, what I really liked about it was how the Cameron and Walker scenario did resolve. It didn't seem forced. It wasn't like you forced the happy ending to get there. It's like they truly evolved into what happened to them. And that I just love that. And you don't see, at least I haven't, a lot of May December in New Adult, because New Adults tends to stay in that college, you know, not really getting above 25 range, and here you put in 36-year-old with a kid.
Yeah, I know. And I loved bringing this, you know, 36-year-old who thought that life had passed him by and putting him into this world, letting him going back to college essentially, and really seeing what he would do differently, and, you know, realizing that you can't go back, but life doesn't end at 36. I think in our society, people think once you hit 30, that's it. It's like, I remember when I was graduating college, we were like, oh, I want to be this by I'm 30. And I had that in my mind all throughout my 20s. And then once I hit 30, it was like I got this whole second lease on life, realizing, oh my God, there's still so much more I can do. You know, there's so many people who switch careers and do all these major change-ups when they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, you know, so that's something I learned, but you don't know that when you're 22. Like, mm-hmm. When you're 22, you think someone who's 25 is old.
Anybody who's graduated is pretty old at that point.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's a line in Out on the Limb that I wrote that's from real life where I remember when I was like 22 or 23, and I was still carrying my age by half years. Oh, I'm 22 and a half. I'm 23 and a quarter. And this guy who was older once said to me, he's like, you know you're young when you still use half years. You know, once you get a certain age, it all just kind of blends together. That's true. Like, my birthday's next month. Or no, in September. And, I guess it is next month when this goes live. And sometimes I have to remind myself how old I'm turning. Like,
I have that problem too. And if I have to do the math on it, it just gets worse.
Yeah. It's like once I hit like 29 or 30, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Just pick a number.
Yeah, I know I'm 40-something, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So you've hinted towards this a little bit, but what got you into writing gay romance? Were you reading those books and wanting to write them, or was it more about telling this college story that was in you already?
So I wanted to tell this college story, but I didn't know if it could be possible. But then I started doing some research and asking around some of my friends who are really well read, and they mentioned this book called Social Skills by Sarah Alva. It's this gay new adult book. It's available on Amazon. It came out 2013. It's a phenomenal book. The story is as simple as day. You know, closeted jock and like bookish nerd meet in college. I think they have to, like, the nerd is like tutoring the jock. They fall in love, blah, blah, blah. But it's so well written. When I was reading that book, I just was like, this is why I want to write. Like, this is it. Like, it can be done. And it was finding an audience. Because by the time I read that book, it'd been out for probably close to a year, and it was still selling well from what I could see. Like, there is this audience for that. And just reading that really gave me the green light to give this a try. And also what I love about self-publishing is that you can take a chance. You know, I didn't know if there was like a huge market for this, but the worst that happens is you write it, you put it out there, and either people buy it or they don't.
So, as a reader, what do you like to read?
So I like to read wide. And I always tell people, I think to find your voice, you have to read wide. Because you have to, I think when you find to find your voice, you have to find like what authors speak to you. And then you combine that all into the secret formula that's like your voice. So I love David Sedaris, like Me Talk Pretty One Day. Tom Wolfe is my favorite. The Bonfire of the Vanities is my favorite book. I love most of his other books, like The Right Stuff and A Man in Full. Oh my God, Gillian Flynn, Gone Girl, love that. But then I also love, like on the gay romance side, I love The Understatement of the Year by Serena Bowen. Like I've heard about that from your show. I was blown away by that writing. Like I love that. I love Social Skills, like I mentioned. The Cranberry Hush by Ben Monopoly. And I also read a lot of nonfiction. Like I love Malcolm Gladwell, like Blink, Tipping Point, Outliers. David and Goliath, you can pass on, but his first three are really good. And I love, like right now, I'm reading this book by Chris Gillibo, Born for This. I think you'd also read.
Yeah.
Love that. So I love reading those types of books also. So I read widely. I try to alternate between reading gay romance and then reading like other fiction or nonfiction, like just so I can like stay sharp on gay romance, and then also, you know, just see what else is out there and see what other type of writing, you know, sticks for me. Because I think you learn from anything you write. You know, you always pick up these little tips and tricks.
Yeah, absolutely. You read something, it's like, oh, I like how they did that.
Yeah.
Let me figure out how to do that myself. Kind of thing, yeah. Like
the most recent fiction book I read The Firm by John Grisham. I picked it up. I was going to the beach. I found it at Goodwill for 50 cents. And I was really interested to see like what made this book so successful, because that's what made him John Grisham. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was 500 pages and I blew through it. It's so, the writing is so deceptively simple. You know, there isn't like purple prose or anything like that, but it just hooks you. Like some chapters are all dialogue, but you're just so hooked. It's, you know, I think he can be very underrated, but I think there is a lot of skill in what him or Nora Roberts does.
Yeah, what he did for the legal thriller, I think, was really, you know, it turned a corner for that genre.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. Because like the main character in The Firm is like a tax attorney, the most boring profession in the world. And you're like, oh my God, what happens? What happens? Oh my God. Oh, look at all these. Like there's literally a scene where like they're just like photocopying files and your heart is like racing.
Exactly. I mean, he had the knack to make the most boring thing like, oh my God. So you sent this awesome email to us. The top 10 reasons why AJ Truman would make a great podcast guest, which was just mind-blowingly awesome. Because this happened back in May, so I think we were barely in it 6 months at that point. So I'm going to put you on the spot with your number 7. What's good on Netflix right now? What should I be watching as a Netflix consumer?
I just watched the best show called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. The first season is on Netflix. It airs on the CW. This show is amazing. So every week there's 2 musical numbers in there, and the premise of the show, it's this girl or this woman, this brilliant lawyer who is miserable at her job and she's having a nervous breakdown, and she runs into her old high school crush on the street in New York City and finds out that he's moving to West Covina, California. So all of a sudden she decides to move to West Covina, California, and she keeps saying that she's just doing it because she wants to be happy. But, you know, she's still in love with him. But it is also true. Like, she was miserable in New York. And so she comes to West Covina and she really starts to just, like, be happy. She stops taking her medicine. But the show's done in a musical style. Like, in her head, it's a musical. And so 2 times per episode, people burst into these original songs that are amazing. I mean, they're so catchy on their own. Like, go to YouTube and watch some of them. And yeah, so the show, it's like Ally McBeal. It's very much like an Ally McBeal. It's like quirky, there's music, it's funny, but it's also, the show is really smart about like feminism and misogyny and mental illness and bisexuality. Like, there's a proudly bisexual male character on the show that I think is really well done. Yeah, and it's just like hysterical. So that's great. And then on the movie side, it's kind of an oldie but a goodie, but Adventures in Babysitting, this movie from the 80s. Oh my God, love it. I just like watched it and I just like fell in love with it all over again. And I think it's also a really great example of like really good storytelling too, because it's just like, it's really creative and really fun. And then what other shows am I watching on there? Oh my God, Damages. So speaking of legal thrillers, Damages is amazing. It's like Glenn Close being like the most Glenn Closiest Glenn Close that ever Glenn Closed. But each season, it's like 24, and like each season it's self-contained and it's a new case. And it's just so smart. Like, there's so many twists and turns and like double crosses. It is like a phenomenal legal thriller. So if you have any interest in John Grisham or just like thrillers, or you like shows about strong female characters, definitely check out Damages too.
Okay. I like your pick, though. I especially like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend because we were interested in that when it was on the CW, but I think it was on Monday night, and like our DVR was like at capacity for what it could deal with on a Monday night.
Yeah.
And that did not make the cut. And
Yeah.
we were excited to see that it showed up on Netflix.
Yeah, I was like super excited. I didn't want to watch it at first. I'm like, oh, this sounds stupid, but my husband like got me into it, and I was hooked. And now like I can't stop singing the songs from the show.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm going to have to look at that. So, what advice might you have for those coming into the gay romance genre? Because you're relatively new, having only published your first book a couple years ago.
So my big advice is to, if you want to write gay romance, read gay romance. There's a lot you can learn. So when I came into this, I had never really read romance, and what I thought about romance, well, I knew from from the young adult world reading contemporary romance, and then from watching romantic comedies. And my big misconception with the romance genre in books is that I thought, oh, the guy and girl or the guy and guy, they don't get together till the very end. You just have to sustain that tension for like the whole book. But really, when you read these books, you see that most of the time the characters get together, and then the second half of the book is them overcoming bigger obstacles or trying to stay together. And that was a big insight for me. And something like if I hadn't read these books, I wouldn't have known. So yeah, so if you want to write for the genre, read it. Read the books that are selling well. Read the books that are #1. See what they're doing well. And the best piece of advice I have for like new authors too, I got from Kendall Alexander, because I emailed her/them when I was first starting out, just for advice. And he/they said, build your base. Don't worry about giving away free copies. Build your base. And that's something I take to heart. I've seen authors who are very stingy with ARCs or stingy about giving free copies. They're worried about piracy and what have you. I'm not. I remember for Out in the Open, I contacted reviewers. I even said to reviewers, if you have friends who like to read and and are active on Goodreads, just like send them my way. I'll give them a free copy. They don't have to have a blog, And it was because of that got the buzz building on Out in the Open, and that made sales more than make up for what I gave away in free copies. So yeah, so the big takeaway is read the genre, study it, and don't be afraid to build your base and give away those free copies. Because yeah, giving away even like 50 copies, in the long run, it's going to pay off.
Yeah, you really hear that on all the self-publishing podcast type shows. That it's like first in series for free, or using it as a reader magnet, and just use that to build everything else.
Yeah. And start up a mailing list. That's also something I learned from the get-go. That's been really helpful.
Yeah, that was one of my big glitches. I didn't have a mailing list going for the first probably 2 years that I was publishing, and it was just like, oh, that's so stupid.
I know. I don't have a ton of people on my list. I think it's around 200. But even so, I mean, the fact that you're having those rabid fans and and getting them all to purchase on the same day, it boosts your ranking. And And what I always tell people is that if you try to build your community on just a Facebook or only on Twitter or only on Goodreads, you're building on rented land. Because Facebook, at any moment, they could change the rules and that all could go away. Same with any other platform. But at least if you have people's email addresses, that's not really going to change. That's as solid land as you can get in the e-world.
Absolutely. So what's coming up next for you, both with Browerton and perhaps other projects?
So the next book in the Browerton series, Browerton, not Bowerton.
Oh, so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's early. In California, the R is silent. So my next book is coming out mid-September. It's called Out of My Mind, and I think of it as When Harry Met Harry. So it's about these two guys that meet the first night of freshman year. One is gay, one is straight, and there's a little misunderstanding. And then they part ways, and then they meet again 2 years later when they're stuck to be roommates together. And they have to answer that age-old question: can gay guys and straight guys be friends without sex getting in the way? And one of them might see that they are not so straight as they think. So that's coming up next, and then the fourth book in the series I'm planning to put out in winter 2017. And I think of that as like a 10 Things I Hate About You in college, or as I call it, I'm calling the book 10 Things I Gay About Gay. So yeah, which is about a guy who is paid to take out this nerd in order to help everyone in his class, or to help bring down the curve in the class. So
interesting.
Yeah, this nice little fun rom-com. Hilarity ensues. So yeah, those are the two big things I'm working on, and then I have other. I think after that I'm going to look into doing other series and try to expand it. So I loved With Out on the Limb. I loved writing about people in Los Angeles since I used to live there. So I'm going to maybe write a series about guys in LA, but we'll see if that happens.
Okay. All right. How far do you see the Browerton series go?
I know. I did a lot of thinking about this because I've seen some other series that can run for books and books. Like I know Alexa Land's First and Forever series is up to 10, 12 books by now. And I originally saw it as maybe 6 books, but the last 2 books, so the 2 books I have planned after the 2 that I just talked about, I see them as taking place away from campus, so I might try to brand them as their own duology. So yeah, I mean, I also, when I started this Browerton series, I had no idea where I was going. Like, I wrote Out in the Open as a standalone. I didn't even think about a series or an existing universe. So I've really just been working on building on that, but there's no firm foundation. And I think for planning a series, it's smart if you can plan it beforehand and see, okay, what characters do I want to talk on each book? Well, how will they weave in and out of the previous books? So I don't know. I mean, I think I'll probably end the Browerton series sometime in 2017. But, that doesn't mean I'm going to stop writing. I'm going to be coming out with new books, and I can always return to it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Spin-offs, continuations. Because I certainly wouldn't mind to see, more of Cameron and Walker at some point, even if they just show up as supporting characters somewhere.
I know someone just emailed me the other day about that, being like, "Oh, are you going to write more about them?" And it's always tough. I know, like after I wrote Out in the Open, people are like, "Oh, I want to read more. I want to read more." I'm like, well, they're happy together and they're having sex. What else can I write about? But I actually just published a short story about Greg and Ethan going away for the summer. So I might do that, like release short stories here and there. But we'll see. Who knows what the future holds?
Yeah, that's cool.
Now that Miss Cleo's gone, none of us know.
Right?
Yeah.
So I know coming up in October, you're going to your first GRL.
Whoa!
Are you excited? Seems like you're excited.
I'm excited. I'm nervous. Okay, so I have a question with the costume party. Because growing up, I always did handmade costumes. But like, I mean, do people go all out with these costumes? Is this something where I should like, go to a store and like, you know, drop $100 on a costume or something? Or, I mean, how into it do people get?
It's all over the place. We've seen people in some amazing, handmade, awesome costumes. We've seen people in store-bought costumes. We've seen people show up in jeans and a t-shirt. And actually, we've been those people. Like, there's been years that we've gone in just jeans and a t-shirt. You know, whatever we were in that day is what we're in that night. Because it's like, just can't cope with making a costume. A couple of years ago, we bought costumes and did that. We are thinking about what to do with this Wizard of Oz thing. But we also have a backup plan if we choose to cop out, which I'm not going to reveal here. People will just see it there. And possibly on the Halloween episode of the podcast, they'll see that. But it's really all over the place because it's really, the whole event is like, do whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you want to do. There's no pressure. If you don't come in a costume, it won't be like, what are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
Or if you're in a costume, you might end up taking 5,000 pictures that night because everybody wants to be with your costume.
I know. Maybe I'll dress up as the witch because black is slimming, and I can just like find like a black sheet and like cut a hole in it and like wear that.
Paint your face green. Put a hat
on. Yeah, I'm really excited for GRL. I'm definitely like I'm a little nervous because I think in just like big social settings I kind of can clam up a little bit, but it seems to me that a lot of people are in that situation that it's like super friendly, and yeah, I'm just. I'm looking forward to. I haven't really been to one of these writing conventions, so it's just be cool to meet people who are fans of my work and like me to like fangirl over like other people's work. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. I mean, I kind of wish I'd gone last year when it was in San Diego. Was it in San Diego last year?
Yeah.
You know, the weather might be a tad better than Kansas City, maybe.
San Diego was really nice.
Yeah. Kansas City is the San Diego of the Midwest. I can't even say that with a straight face. No, I love Kansas City.
I don't have a good idea of what what Kansas will be like in October. Because it could still be summer, potentially, depending on the year. Or it could actually be fall. We'll see.
Yeah.
So what's the best way for people to find you on the web and keep up with your work?
So the best way is to join my mailing list. I call them the Outsiders. They always get the first glimpse of new books, whether it be new covers, titles, teases. I run giveaways for them. So, to win a free book, I'll do it only for them. So they can win like a free signed copy, like a hard copy like this or like that. And I'll give them like some free short stories. So if you want the goods, you better join the Outsiders. And you can do that by going to ajtruman.com/outsiders. So you can do that. And then you can also find me on Facebook as AJ Truman. You can find me on Goodreads. And then just my regular old website, ajtruman.com.
Cool. We will link to all that stuff in the show notes along with the links so people can pick up those books.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, AJ. Thank you so much for being with us.
I think this is super awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you
welcome.
for letting me stalk you and letting me come on.
We look forward to seeing you in person in Kansas.
So it's funny that AJ brought up Crazy Ex-Girlfriend as one of his recommendations because we recently just gave it a try a couple of days ago. I was looking for something to watch while I was on the elliptical, and I gave Crazy Ex-Girlfriend a try. It was hilarious, and I said, Jeff, we've got to watch this show. So I watched it again with Jeff.
And now we're hooked.
Crazy, crazy funny. We've only seen the pilot so far, but we are hooked, and it's going to go into our regular rotation when the new season starts, probably in a couple of weeks.
In October.
Yeah.
It starts with the CW stuff in October. But we'll get through it on the first 18. I think it's 18 episodes in season 1 on Netflix.
Yeah.
And we'll get through those before that starts because it was a hoot, and AJ was 100% right about that recommendation.
Yeah. I don't think she's crazy. I would totally move to West Covina for Josh Chan.
I would too, because he's a hunk. Let's just call it what it is. And
totally.
hopefully, since they're 2 hours from the beach, 4 in traffic, he'll be shirtless at some point, hopefully. Yeah. So anyway, that'll do it for this week. Coming up next week in episode 47, Arshada Shundan is here for the 2016 GRL Blog Tour, and Danny from Love Bites is going to stop by with some book recommendations.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it'll be a good episode.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to Jeff and Will's Big Gay Fiction Podcast. New episodes are available every Monday at iTunes and other major podcast outlets. While there, subscribe to the show and please consider leaving a review. For detailed show notes, links, and to sign up for the monthly newsletter, visit biggayfictionpodcast.com.